This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day, and that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Carm Report. Wherever you get your podcast, you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. That's A-M-P-I-R-E. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can always read my work on ESPN.com. And don't forget, you can join me and Nikki Javala from the Washington Post in our live stream show at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday night. Give you about a half hour, answer some of your questions, go over a couple of topics, bada bing, get in and out, and there you go. So I'm going to do some more film reviews. This isn't necessarily, it's not a game review. It's a review of what Sam Howell did on Sunday against the Rams, kind of comparing it a little bit to Jacoby Brissett. It's not quite an apples to apples, but just for some context. And what does this mean for Howell going forward? So I'm going to get to that in about a minute. But first, a little bit of news from today that Cam Cheeseman, Washington, when I say today, I mean Monday night, because this is when I record it. And so Washington's cut Cam Cheeseman, their long snapper. Not a surprise. Disastrous day yesterday. Has struggled this year, been up and down. We know that. They had long snappers in earlier in the year. They definitely hoped he would work things out. I remember talking to a few people who were at those workouts and said simply that at that time that Cheeseman still was the better snapper. So, we'll see what happens. We all know we saw what we saw. It did not get better. They hoped it would get better. And Sunday, it certainly cost them. There have been other times where there have been bad snaps, but it did not cost them like it did on Sunday. And it almost cost them their punter. It was a terrible snap that he had on one punt to Tress Way when he got pummeled. And then I was surprised he actually came back in the game, hurt his back. And then, it certainly played a role in the blocked extra point. There are a couple other ones that were very, very iffy. Couldn't live with it. Cheeseman knew he'd probably be gone. And certainly he is. Now, the question is who replaces him. As I talk Monday night, don't know yet. I do know one guy that I would watch is Tucker Addington. Was a guy that came in earlier this year. I know he's been in a bunch of workouts. So we'll see what happens with that situation. And of course, now I know a lot of people talked about the drafting of a long snapper. Should you do it? And actually doing some research, there have been 8 long snappers drafted since 2015, including one in the 5th round by Bill Belichick in 2015. So it's not like this is the only team that did it. It certainly did not work out. For 2 years, he was pretty good. This year, he was not. And so they move on, and now you kind of begin that quest to find another guy. I had a few people ask about Nick Sundberg, and a little bit surprised, but that people forget this, that the guy had a bad back. And as much as everybody likes Nick Sundberg, and he did a really good job while he was healthy, he wasn't in position to help anymore as a snapper. I know he worked out for some teams or tried to, and it wasn't going to work for him. And it's unfortunate what he had been dealing with in terms of health. So he was never an option, and they did have to move on from him because of his health issues. And I think, now clearly didn't work out long-term with Cheeseman. So we'll see where they go from here. But the point is, they had to move on from Sundberg because of health issues. So now we'll see what happens next. And this is where we're at in the season, folks, that the big story is the long snapper. And one thing I do give, it's always hard for some guys like a long snapper, because the only time you talk to the media is when you screw up, by and large. There have been a couple of long snappers over the years who were very good with the media, but there was no reason. Trevor Maddich was great. Ethan Albright back in the day was really good, just a good guy, pleasant guy to talk to, but there's really no need to talk to them a lot until they mess up. But I give Cheeseman credit, and I said this after the game on Sunday when I had Michael Phillips on. I give him credit because he was always out there talking to the media when he messed up. And he waited, basically almost waited for the media to get in there so he could address what happened, because that's part of the job. And believe it or not everybody's going to do that. And it would be easy for him to say, well, screw it. You never talk to me unless I screw up. But he was there. And so I always like when guys do that. I think Emmanuel Forbes has been outstanding in that regard too. There have been more than a few guys that have been, but those guys stand out. Sam Howell always answers questions. Of course, part of it is you got to go to the podium and do it. But other guys in the situation where they, you could probably be a little bit less cooperative, but they always have been. So that's all. As a media person, I always appreciate that, because it can't be easy asking somebody, why were you bad at your job? Or it can't be easy answering, why were you bad at your job today? And that's kind of the role of what we do after games, is why were you good? Why were you bad? What happened? How did you mess up? Why? Anyway, we move on. They needed a new long snapper. It was the necessary move, is the right move. And so we'll see what happens from here. Number two, on Jacoby Brissett, very solid game, as we saw. And I think one of the things that certainly helped him compared to what we saw what the Rams did against Sam Howell is the way they tried to attack him. And you saw a lot more movement with the Rams secondary right before the snap or right after the snap when Howell was the quarterback. And I think it certainly hurt. Whereas with Brissett, there were sometimes some more defined reads a little bit, which certainly helped. You saw more just straight 4-man pressures against Brissett, whereas you saw a little bit more pressure being brought, especially on third downs against Howell, some more of those simulated pressures against Howell. But with Brissett, and so I think that certainly helped. But I think what also helps is Brissett is a vet. And while this is still a new offense for him, he's seen defenses. And that's the first key, is being able to read that defense and anticipate what they're going to do, and then knowing where to go from there. So he played calm, played relaxed, did a really nice job. And I think one of the things that that Washington hopes that Howell takes from that is how they felt that Brissett played with freedom, like not just that, from the coach standpoint, but just from his internal standpoint, like, hey, just this is the read, go here, and don't overthink it. And I think that's what Brissett did well at, is not overthinking it. He saw that he knew what the matchups were. He attacked certain matchups, he made it a point to get the ball to the playmakers in those matchups. You saw, all the guys, Samuel, Dotson, and McLaurin all got the ball with him. And so I think that was a really good job. You saw the maneuvering of the defense with the eyes at times. I think you saw the patience there. Heck, on the touchdown to McLaurin, it was actually on the second one. Actually, on the first one, the touchdown to McLaurin, just a good job by being patient, getting to that read. Same on the 49-yard run, on the 49-yard pass, because McLaurin was tangled up with the corner after he coming down. There's a physical matchup, and then he got by him. And because there was some patience with Brissett and hanging in the pocket, gets it down the field, just a good throw, nice play. So just the guy did a good job. And does it mean anything for Sam Howell? Well, I think what it means is you can watch what he did and take from there, and just, the processing and how you handle certain situations, but also the playing with freedom and throwing with trust and anticipation. I think that's one thing that I think Brissett did that I think Howell needs to do a better job of as this season continues. And then whatever happens next season, whether he's competing for a job, whether he has it, he's going to have to start doing more of that. And how do you get there? And there's a number of ways to get there. And I'm not going to lay all the blame for Howell's struggles just on him, because I think it goes deeper than that. And, one thing I did like with Brissett in there was the second touchdown to Curtis Samuel, because it was the exact same play that they had run 2 plays earlier. The difference on this one, the first one, if you remember, it was one where he targeted Samuel in the end zone, throws a little bit behind him, defensive back makes a play. The next time, what I liked is Samuel changed his release, and just instead of kind of being more physical, kind of attacked him with his quickness, gets to the inside, boom, open. Brissett moves the linebacker, keeps him over on the other side with his eyes, turns back. Really nice job by Brissett. Good job by Samuel changing his release. And so and it was a touchdown. Some of the things I didn't like, and in fact, it was one of the first plays by Brissett. And this is something that we've seen too much of this year is the clustered receivers. And, it's just with the spacing and all that. And it's been a problem to me all year. And that some of that stems from, again, the timing of the offense or the timing of your release or how you're running the speed of your routes. But it just seems like there's too often where there are guys in the same area, and that just can't be. And again, it's been a season-long issue. It was on this one play with Brissett, but otherwise, he did a really nice job.
This episode is brought to you by Chevrolet. Now's your chance to support a team with real grit. The Chevy ZR2 family of off-road trucks. The first ever Silverado HD ZR2 joins the all-new Colorado ZR2 and the Silverado ZR2 for a commanding lineup of off-road ready trucks, equipped to take on anything this season throws their way. Visit Chevy.com to learn more.
The holidays start here at Kroger with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Kroger has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
All I want for the holidays this year is some NBA action. This week, new customers can score $150 instantly in bonus bets just for betting $5, an instant dub just for you. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code KEIM, K-E-I-M. New customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on basketball. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code KEIM. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/basketball for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
Let's get to Sam Howell, because that's the guy that's still a key to Washington's future. And listen, I think if you want this franchise to be in a better spot, you should hope that this guy finishes well, because you want to take something off the board. And right now there's so many needs. Now, and talking to other people about this, whether it's Logan Paulson, people in there, like, you can't overreact to things that you see. This is why you have to kind of take a week or so break after the season and then dive into the film work to evaluate what you have or what you think you have based on the play, and not overreact emotionally to how things have unfolded down the stretch here, because that's where you could lead to mistakes. So anyways, with Howell, kind of think he's hit a bit of a wall, and talking to some people over there, I think they would kind of agree with that. And just, it's not all on him. Part of it is, again, you're playing really good defenses now, but these are the defenses that if you want to develop into a top quarterback, these are the defenses you're going to have to face and attack and beat at some time and play well against at some point. And, not there yet, but it is a factor in what's going on here. And you can't just blame him and say, oh, he's regressed, because I think the offense has regressed, or the offense really hasn't evolved enough. And I think that could be part of the problem too, for him. And, so I think it's always a little bit more nuanced than just saying, hey, the quarterback is or isn't doing this. And even when someone's doing well, sometimes it could be the play, it could be the scheme, it could be, guys making plays for them. It could be the line giving them 5 seconds to throw, which doesn't happen often anywhere. But it's not just all on the quarterback or all because of the quarterback. And I think in this case, we're seeing that. The timing is off. He's not throwing with enough anticipation that I think you'd want to see. And I think that's something where he's going to have to evolve more, is throwing with a higher level of anticipation, because, and there are a couple of examples I'm going to bring up in a minute, but you saw this Sunday and you've seen it in other games. And it's something that I think he would agree, you need to get better with that. I know they would agree with that. And so that's something he has to work on. Now, the things that I will always go back to are his traits. I think he has good traits, and I think that matters. It's between the work that he puts in, the studying that he does. I mean, that part is big. And then you throw in the fact that you talk to people over there, it's always, what do you like most about him? The number one thing you probably hear is accuracy. And I think so you just have to kind of develop all the rest of the games. And I know, did they do enough to develop him? And it feels a little bit like it's been a sink or swim situation where, like, you're going to put him out there, you're going to put a lot of concepts on him or on the offense and see what he does. And you're going to throw the ball a lot, and you're not going to have a really good run game to help maybe offset some of the pressure on him, and maybe to develop other things you can do in terms of protection, in terms of play fakes, whatever. And I think that's one thing that has been a factor. And in talking to some people, like, you hear that, hey, listen, don't forget Patrick Mahomes sat for a year in this offense, and others have sat for a year or so in this offense. I think it was, this offense been around for a while. So you go back to Mike Holmgren running this, right? So it takes a minute to learn it. So he's doing it in this first year with not always the best around him. And it's not easy. So again, I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm trying to offer explanations and to show you it's a little bit more nuanced than just has he or hasn't he, has he regressed, or what is his future? And I still think, my take will always be that you still owe it to yourself as an organization to explore all opportunities to get better, because this has been a black mark against the organization to being unable to find that quarterback, or when you have him, to keep that quarterback. And until you have that guy, you keep looking for that guy. So you don't turn it off just because Sam Howell had a good 7-game stretch. But I don't think you discard him because he's in a tough stretch. He and the offense are in a tough stretch now. I don't think you do that either. I think you take everything into consideration, see how it compares, and then you go from there. But that would be my little 2 cents. And I know that some people would say, well, what do you want to see from him? Their answer would be, you want to see him play with some more freedom, going back to what I said about Jacoby and some of the, just kind of letting it loose a little bit more at times. And I think there was a thought that the deep ball would be a bigger factor with him and a quarterback, and it really hasn't been for whatever reason. And I think that's something people would like to see a little bit more of, just because I think that would help him. They feel like it might help open up some other areas in the offense if you're able to take some more of those shots. And it's not as simple as, the line can't protect him. Because to be honest, in this game, there were a couple of issues with the line, a couple of issues with protection, I should say, because sometimes it was a back failing to pick up a blitz. But overall, he had time to do some stuff in this game. The protection was not the big issue as to why the offense wasn't moving. Anyway, so there we go. So let's look at it. And I also credit the Rams. I felt like the Rams did a good job of changing their looks. And I think there are a few pressure packages where, whether it's the simulated pressures or sending some guys up the middle, I think that got them into that, hurt Washington a little bit. But I did like the way they disguised the coverage. You saw a lot of movement right before the snap or right after the snap. And I think at times you could tell, I think that got them, it left them in certain maybe route combinations that weren't conducive to beating what they ended up seeing. And so that is something that was noticeable as well. There was a 1st and 10 early in the game where it was, if you remember, the little pass out to the right to Antonio Gibson. This is an example. So in this play, it kind of looks like that the Rams are in a cover 2. So you have McLaurin on the left with the corner up on him and press. Well, then the Rams shift to a cover 3, and you have McLaurin in a one-on-one, and he wins. Now, the ball in this route, it looks like it's certainly designed to get rid of, McLaurin is getting rid of the ball fast, right? So I'm not going to knock him for not then turn and go over here, but he could have. I think that's one of the things that as you elevate your game as a quarterback, perhaps you can see something in there that allows you to then take you over to McLaurin and take a shot there. Again, I'm not knocking him for not doing it because you still picked up 8 yards and it looked like he went to where he was supposed to. But I also think that the Rams did a good job of preventing him from going there with the way they rotated their coverage. So they give up 8 yards, but it could have been allowed. Had he looked over, or not looked over there, but had they handled it differently, maybe it's a longer play to McLaurin. But again, based on the way everything unfolded, probably looks like Howell made the right decision for him at this time. But I think as you elevate your game down the road and you develop a different level of comfort, your pre-snap reads, whatever it is, that's where he can kind of graduate to. And I'm not knocking him for not doing it here necessarily, but that was something was there. And I think it also played a role in another play later in the game. And I think that's where there was a 3rd and 5. It was early in the third quarter where it looks like, again, you maybe have a shot down the side because it looks like McLaurin's got a one-on-one possibly. And are the safeties going to rotate back to that cover, that single high look or cover 3? And instead you stay in that cover 2, and it's a deep ball down the right side that almost gets intercepted because it really was one that's like, based on that look, it's a tough throw to make. But give the Rams credit because I think they kind of, I think the earlier play that I mentioned in the first quarter led to them taking a shot here, thinking maybe you might get the same thing, and they didn't. But again, I give the Rams credit for the way they played that, playing some chess there, and I think they did a good job there. And it made it tough, and that's what you do against a young quarterback. That's what you do. And again, this is where some of the things for Howell to learn down the road is seeing some of that. Maybe, I don't want to say quicker. I don't know what the answer is to that, but I do know it's something that as you get more and more experience, that it makes it harder for them to do that because you may see something and you can detect a clue, whatever it is, the movement, whatever it is, and then get to something else. And then sometimes there are times too, to be honest, that there aren't enough answers to what's going on or to what the quarterback needs. And that makes it tough on him as well.
This episode is brought to you by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Some things are just better together, like party playlists and Friday nights, campfires and ghost stories, peanut butter and chocolate. And Reese's Cups are the perfect combination of creamy peanut butter and delicious milk chocolate. So, when you want something sweet, you can't do better than Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Buy Reese's today wherever candy is sold.
The holidays are a time to feel and create joy. And what could be more joyous than the look on her face as she unwraps a stunning new jewelry piece from Blue Nile? How about getting 50% off your purchase? Blue Nile offers premium quality, priced below traditional retail. Their online experts are available 24/7 to answer any questions and make sure you've picked the perfect gift. For a limited time, you can get 50% off at BlueNile.com. That's 50% off at BlueNile.com.
There was another time where you'd see, maybe some pressure on him and nobody is there there's no one turn around where you can relieve that pressure, right? And so that makes it tough on a quarterback. And that happened a couple of times, and it's happened a few times throughout the year. And that's where I say, like, do you have enough answers all the time for what to help him out with some of these situations? And I don't know that the answer is always yes. And I think that is something that at times has hurt them and hurt him. But again, I do think you need to throw with a little bit more trust. That's going to be a big thing. And there was one example of that with McLaurin early in the game where, and I'm putting it up here, but it's on YouTube, just a little clip of that, or a still shot. Because again, I can't play video. Just for people always ask, I'm not allowed to play it. And people who do, most of them probably shouldn't be doing it either. But when you work for ESPN, you're going to follow the rules for what the NFL wants, because that's what you do. Anyway, so there was one where it's like McLaurin's kind of coming on a hitch in zone, and Howell's looking over there, and I'm not sure why he didn't go there, but that looks like one where if you throw with a little bit of anticipation, it's a good 15-yard completion. Instead, he swings it over to the right to Gibson for 3 yards. You get 3 yards, but you could have had about 10 to 15. And I think that's one thing where, Again, that's the next step for him. And so does he get better with that over the next 3 games, over the offseason, next season, whatever. And in this particular one, he had 3.46 seconds to throw. So that's where I say the protection there were a couple of breakdowns for sure, but overall, I thought the protection was okay. And I didn't think that was the issue for his struggles in the game on Sunday. There were a couple of times where you saw Chris Paul whiff on a block and there was a deep one to McLaurin that was incomplete that if he had decent protection on this play, it could have been a huge play to McLaurin. And this is where McLaurin has been hurt with Howell a couple of times where, pointed out last game against Miami, where there's some balls that were available, but because there's quick pressure on him, then it prevented him from really doing anything with it. But on this one, Chris Paul whiffs on the guy and he's about to get hit. So he just unleashes one way before he's ready, throws it out of bounds because he threw up a prayer and it wasn't answered. But that's one where McLaurin wins. Howell's got the right read. He's got the right thought, but the protection broke down. So that's been part of the problem this year for sure. Love the ability for Howell that he still plays tough. He runs the ball. He can make those off-schedule plays. He has a 13-yard run on 3rd and 15, sets up a conversion on 4th and 2. But there are other times where on that interception, for example, that, you can run and make plays, but sometimes you can get in that habit of like you've been making some of those plays on the run and you fall into that. Maybe you fall into thinking that you can do a little bit too much sometimes when you do that. Because on that one, on the interception, you had both McLaurin and Gibson available before you started to really scramble seriously. And even when he started to, as McLaurin curls back around to the middle, you still have Gibson sitting there for 7 yards, and you have to know that ball to the middle is a dangerous throw. He has made it. He's gotten away with it. But sometimes when you do it enough, it's going to bite you at times too. And it did here. So, the receiver's going to have to help him out too. And there was one, an incompletion to De'Ami Brown in the end zone. It looks like Logan Thomas gets hung up inside on what maybe he's going to break out, but he loses the leverage or maybe doesn't account for the leverage the way he should. But this kind of reminds me of a play where he threw it to Jahan Dotson against the Bears earlier this year, where Jahan kind of flattens the route a little bit at the end. And I think De'Ami may have done that. I don't know for sure because I'm not sure what the route he's supposed to run, but the way Howell throws the ball is a little bit of an overthrow. And based on the angle of De'Ami's route, again, this is just a guess, so I don't know. But it could have just been a bad throw, or it could have been just keep angling that route, right? Be kind of starts to angle it and flattens it out, and it looks like Howell's either makes a bad throw or anticipates continuing to angle. And De'Ami had position if he did that. He did a nice job getting position on that. It's just that's where, sometimes you're going to have to help that quarterback out too. So is all lost on Howell? No, because there's still things to like there. And, I think one thing that'll be interesting to see in the evaluation in the offseason by whomever comes in is how much do they look at it and say, okay, these are things that are going to be tough to overcome, whether it's anticipation throws, trust throws, whatever. Or you say, hey, listen, in this system, it's going to be different for him because of this. And that way you can say, because will he fit into whatever system it is? Can he be the guy that the next staff wants and needs at quarterback? And, again, there's a lot of traits to build off with him, but there's still a lot of questions that he has to answer. And this is something we're going to talk a lot about in the offseason, but one of the things I would do is if this new staff says, okay, want to build around Sam Howell, or at least continue trying to build around him, or build around for whomever goes to quarterback in the next couple of years, then in that case, if you have a choice between a couple tackles, the kid from Penn State, kid from Notre Dame, could you trade down a couple spots, maybe pick up a couple extra picks, maybe get one? My thing would be get one for 2025 and stack it there, because if Howell pays off, hey, great. Then you got some more good young picks to add in 25. If he doesn't pay off, then you have maybe the ability to be more aggressive moving up to get a guy in 2025 if there's nobody you like in 2024. So, because it may only be two guys at the top of the draft who are really the kind of guys that you want to draft, because I think Jaden Daniels would be the guy that we're going to hear a lot about in the offseason as a wild card for that. And how do people assess him? So long way to go with that. But again, all is not lost with Howell. Not a good game. There are things that he can improve upon. There are things the offense can help him with. And there are things that, whether it's from protection, whether it's play calling, et cetera, and or scheming it up, whatever it is, there are ways you can help, but he also can help himself. And by, again, anticipation throws, don't try to do too much on some of the scrambles, but that off schedule game is a big plus for him. And it's why if you can just kind of fix some of those, or not just fix, but improve some of the on schedule deliveries, that you then have a chance to build a good quarterback. So there you go. That's it from me for the, I don't want to say a Rams film review, but just talking about Sam Howell and just what we saw on Sunday. And some of this stuff is a lot of this stuff is based on what I watch. It's also based on people that I talk to throughout the day. So there you go. That's it. Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern time, Nikki Javala and Nikki Javala and I, because I will be on this show as well. So it's I. Anyway, and I should know that as a journalist, but Nikki Javala and I will be doing a live stream show at 7:30 Eastern time, Tuesday night, answering your questions, just a little bit of a chit chat between Nikki and I, and then we'll get to your questions. So tune in, join us, bring your questions. Hope we can be a diversion. 3 more games. That's it, folks. Talk to you next time.